All right, everybody in?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Her backyard.
That's not a good one. Hang on. Welcome, everyone, to our May 29th meeting of the Brentwood Rotary Club. For those visiting today, I am your honored president, Sarah Johnson, and I'm so happy that you're here with us on our virtual Zoom call. Our invocation today is going to be led by Bob Sinclair, and our pledge and four-way test is going to be led by Alan Treadway. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob.
Thank you, Sarah. Join me in prayer. Father God, as we pause at the middle of this day to come before you, we are grateful for the blessings we enjoy, opportunities we have. We're grateful for our club and the leadership of our club. I am personally grateful for my new granddaughter who was born healthy last Saturday. We thank you that we live in a community like Brentwood where we can serve and work and enjoy the life we live. We're grateful to be living in this great state, United States of America with the freedom we enjoy, and we pray for our leaders and of our club, our state, and and the United States of America, that they will have wisdom and direction that would be pleasing with you. And I think we're grateful for technology that we have, that we can have a meeting like this in this COVID-19 time period. We do have members that have health issues that we would ask for your blessings and healing hand. We also lift up Roger and Shirley Greenup and the passing of Shirley's mother. Ask you to be in their presence and give them peace and comfort in this period of time. And we are grateful for the blessings of food and nourishment that we have to enjoy and to serve. Now bless us as we attempt to serve you better. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bob. Alan, you're up. Alan?
He's still eating.
Sarah, I don't see that Alan is on.
All right, then I'm going to ask Dale Llewellyn to lead us in the pledge and four-way test. Dale?
Okay, please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Now, the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First,
Is it the truth?
second,
Is it fair to all concerned?
third,
Will it build goodwill, good friendships?
and fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all
concerned?
Certainly hope so.
Thank you so much, Dale and Bob. We appreciate your standing in for us during this time period. At this time, I am going to have our guest go ahead and introduce themselves, as well as any visiting Rotarians. So if you're a guest, please say who you are, where you're from, what you do, and we'd love to hear about you.
I'll start off. Hello, everybody. I am Leah Schnell. I am Charles Grumman's partner over at Wells Fargo Advisors, where we help highly successful people achieve financial confidence. I'm excited to be here today. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Leah. For joining us.
Hi, my name is Regia Davis. I am Jennifer Bourne's guest. I am with Brentwood Leadership, and I'm also with PTO at Ravenwood High School. And glad to be here.
Thank you, Regia. We're glad you joined us today.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Gonzales. I'm Judge Gonzales's wife, and I'm just a guest today. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
I'm John Loar. I'm going to be part of the presentation today with Alberto Gonzales when he joins us.
Perfect. Thank you, John. Anyone else? Well, all right then. At this point in our program, we go ahead and do our happy bucks. Is anybody happy today?
Yes, it's Larry Faust. I'm very happy. My oldest grandson graduated Saturday afternoon in Dallas, graduated from high school, and he was one happy young man, and so was the family.
Yay.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you.
Who else is happy? Well, I'm happy. My 9-year-old nephew Fisher is in town. I went and got him last Friday, and he will probably be joining us for about 5 seconds next week. He's at my mom's now, but he will be here until the 10th of June. So it's going to be a lot of excitement in the Johnson household going on, and I'm just blessed that he can come join us. We've missed the little booger.
Oh, that's great.
Anyone else?
I'll go. My daughter just graduated. We did our virtual graduation last week at Ravenwood High. So it went well. The kids had a good time. Then we had the parade. And now we're keeping our fingers crossed for the live graduation in July at the Ag Center. So
wonderful. There's a lot of seniors experiencing that same hopefulness.
Yes.
All right, if we don't have any others, I want to update the club about a couple of things. So I was in communication with the Martin Center, as I told you the last time we were together, and they will not be reopening till around the middle of June, they think, at this point. So that would mean our first in-person meeting could potentially be on the 19th. Everybody should have received in their inbox a survey yesterday that I really are asking everybody to fill it out. I want to hear from you. The board wants to hear from you. And what we want to hear is about in-person meetings in June, as well as the installation banquet. We all know what a big deal the installation banquet is, and we all want to first protect the health and welfare of our Rotarians. So please, if you haven't completed the survey, it'll take you 5 minutes. Please go to that link. You got it in an email. It's also in Reflections. We're asking that all those surveys be received by Tuesday, June 2nd. So if y'all can take a few minutes, I'd greatly appreciate it. Also, the golf committee has met and worked with Brentwood Country Club under the leadership of Larry Kane, and they've moved the golf tournament until September 21st. So yay, we didn't have to cancel. Yay. We did get to reschedule it. And so just as a reminder, we're asking all Rotarians to obtain at least $500 in sponsorships. Some of those ways that Rotarians have stepped up is when we waived the fourth quarter dues, they've gone ahead and made donations to the foundation, which we greatly appreciate. Also, businesses are reopening, so be a great way for them to promote. So if you guys could keep that in mind, Larry Kane and all of us would appreciate it. And want to also, as Bob Sinclair mentioned about Roger Greenup and Shirley Greenup, Shirley's mom, Emma Jean Berkeley passed away. So they're up there handling all of the arrangements, everything at this point. So keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Also, please keep in your thoughts and prayers Robert and Dottie Fiddler, Roger Wheelwright, and John Stokes as they continue to deal with health issues. I now would like to turn the program over to Michael Kaplan. Michael will be introducing our speaker today. Michael?
Excuse me. That would have been some news. Our speaker today is Alberto Gonzales, and he is speaking to us about MLB in Nashville. For those that don't know, he's our former Attorney General and also the current Dean at Belmont's Law School. Everybody welcome him.
Welcome.
So Alberto Gonzales will join the call at 12:30. My name's John Loar. I'm working with Alberto Gonzales and kind of leading the effort here in Tennessee. I'd be happy to kind of get started and kind of give you my background before Alberto gets on the call, if you'd like. I've been looking at this market for about 3 years. I came to Nashville when Megan Berry was in office, and the objective was to, I was working on behalf of a client. A little bit of background before that, I've been involved in 3 different Major League Baseball acquisitions over the years. Recently, specifically with our partners Tony La Russa and Dave Stewart. More Tony than Dave. I was involved in the Dodgers acquisition, involved in the Seattle Mariners acquisition. The recent one was helping Dave Stewart on the Miami Marlins, which led me to Nashville. As part of that, my focus was, and my background really is, obviously in baseball. I have an extensive real estate background, corporate background, finance background, and more operations. And that was really my efforts on all of these projects was sort of to lead the initiative. As I took on a project after the Marlins, my role there was really trying to figure out where Major League Baseball expansion opportunities exist or relocation opportunities, and what markets could facilitate that objective, in the future. Nashville was one of 8 markets I looked at in the United States, and I looked at 2 international markets. And I'd been to Nashville over the years, kind of a sidebar. My wife is actually from Nashville, grew up here until she was in 5th grade, and then moved away. We met up in Seattle many, many years ago. My daughter's at University of Kentucky. I had sold a business in 2016, and as I finished the project and did this analysis of this market, I told our group, Tony and Dave, that I would be happy to move here, spend time on it, just further my research, and see if this is really the market that that has made as much sense as I thought it did. On the conclusion of the study that I did, there was really only 2 markets that worked in the United States. One was Nashville and one was Las Vegas, and they work for different reasons but very similar reasons. So when you look at this objective, Major League Baseball would like to be in Nashville. It all sounds good. So that's kind of the top-down approach. You really have to think of how you put the pieces of the puzzle together to make that happen, and also sort of match that with either relocation opportunity or expansion opportunity. And it requires really kind of 4 key verticals. Because it is really like every other business, it's driven by revenues, right? As you can imagine. And so when Major League Baseball is looking at markets that work, they're looking at markets that can be a revenue contributor. So those categories are really the baseball team, the club, the baseball team itself, the real estate opportunity, the ballpark opportunity, or what we call the ballpark entertainment district, and the media piece that kind of that factors into that. So that's my background, and that's why I'm in Nashville. So I'd be happy to walk through a presentation page. If you want to throw the first page up, I'll get started until Alberto gets on the call.
I keep getting a notification that says host has disabled attendee screen sharing.
Just a minute. Let me.
Thank you.
I love,
what we could do while we're waiting for the presentation to come up, we do have a question that says, will the downsizing of major leagues impact the Sounds and possibly help or hurt Major League Baseball coming to Nashville?
There's a couple questions there. I mean, one is that, obviously none of us predicted the situation we're in now. Certainly difficult times at all levels, and I think it impacts every business. It's certainly going to impact the Major League Baseball as a business. And we don't have all the answers to that yet. I certainly do. I don't represent Major League Baseball. In this group does not, do that. So that's kind of a good topic. I mean, our group's objective, we have been sanctioned by them. We have a licensing agreement to use the name Major MLB Music City. Their position is that no expansion will take place until Oakland and Tampa Bay are resolved, those stadium issues, team issues. And they won't consider expansion until then. So to go back to the question, how does it affect our objectives here? It doesn't affect our objective. Our objectives still remain to secure the rights for the market as a part of our business plan in 2021. The winter baseball meetings will be in Nashville in 2021, God willing. As it relates to the Sounds are a minor league club. Part of the reason this market works is because of the Sounds and their success. I think Major League Baseball, in our position, at least our position is we think there's an opportunity for both clubs to survive in a market because we can kind of get into that through the presentation. I think that, we're certainly supporting that. And as part of our feasibility analysis, we're certainly going to study that. Okay, do you want me to just to kick off in the presentation?
That'll be perfect. Thank you.
Okay, Music City Baseball is really the company behind the initiative, and like I said, this July will be my second year here. In January 2019, after just completing our findings, our group decided to greenlight the project, and as part of that, required moving to the market and starting to build out what we call a grassroots initiative, and also the infrastructure to accomplish the objective. We were fortunate enough to have the opportunity to develop a relationship with Alberto Gonzales, and he has joined as the chairman of our board. Lee Barfield, who a lot of people know, and what I realized, he was one of the first names that everybody said when I came to the market, you got to meet Lee Barfield. So Lee Barfield is also on our board, and this constitutes our executive committee. Let's go to the next slide, please. Part of our objective is, starting out with a kind of a top level statement, which is, the vision, the dream of bringing Major League Baseball to Tennessee. And as a part of that, what we like to start with, and this is some history here because this ties back into the Gulch and many other projects. You want to start with a dream or a vision of what it could look like and where it could be. And this is one of several photos I'll show you. Let's go to the next slide. This kind of gives you an overview of what it would look like from a top down. This is one of the 3 properties that we are focused on the East Bank. And to give you a little background there, we've looked at properties in Williamson County, Rutherford County. We've looked at several properties in Davidson County. And like I said, on the East Bank specifically, this is one of 3 areas that we are focused on. And we plan on starting our meetings with the city in July and August, given the COVID. But we've had prior conversations with both state and locals officials about the East Bank. And it gives you a little bit of a sense of some of the uses. And again, these are renderings. There's a lot of work that obviously has to go behind this. We don't have the rights or the entitlements for it. And we're just very, very early on, but it's just presenting a forward-thinking dream. Let's go to the next slide. This will give you kind of a different perspective of what that might look like. And part of this as well, and just to give a little background, is any sports, you might be thinking, or some of the questions might be, well, isn't attendance down? How do you finance this? Why Nashville? And we'll get to all that. But what I do want to share here is it gives you a perspective of really a concept where I think all sports are heading, in whether football or basketball or especially baseball is, the sport itself is actually an entertainment product. It becomes a byproduct of the overall opportunity. And wherever you're seeing, like in Atlanta, the Battery, Ballpark Village in St. Louis, the new park in Texas, you really have to build a sport around an entertainment district, or what we're calling a live district. And it's really a family entertainment zone where there's plenty of reasons to go to an event other than just the game itself. And you want people showing up early and staying late. Part of our objective in designing this facility, it's really a world-class entertainment venue. And again, I'll use the word byproduct. Baseball truly is the byproduct of this opportunity because it's 81 days a year, 22% of the time. And what this facility really represents is and why Nashville works is the opportunity to use this 365 days a year as an world-class entertainment district. If you can imagine, like in Las Vegas, where whether it's a Garth Brooks or Cher or some of the entertainers perform there, and it's more of a residency, and that provides this opportunity here. I think the market does. Extended convention uses, corporate uses, and other uses. So, the plan is to really, make the economics work behind the ballpark and the team to be able to privately finance the stadium. So, and ballpark. And so, and that's going to be a question, if it isn't already, is who pays for this, right? So our feeling is, after analyzing the market and a partner that we've secured through, which is AEG or ASM Global, is, we think that we can privately finance a ballpark and an entertainment district.
I was on, I ran out of power and I came in here, now I can't get back on.
Okay. And by the way, this is the first time I presented on Zoom, so I kind of feel like I've got the Hollywood Squares process connected with a presentation that I've never done on a computer. So
looks like Judge Gonzales was able to successfully connect.
Oh, good. Judge Gonzales, would you like to just say hello and provide a little background before we kind of keep going?
Sure. Hello. Sorry for being late to the presentation. At the risk of repeating anything John has said, we're very excited about this project, excited about the opportunity to bring it to our friends in Brentwood, which is where I live. And I'll just let John carry forth with the presentation and jump in if I have anything of interest to add. Go ahead, John.
Okay, sounds good. And again, if you have questions for either one of us, just let me know and we can pause the presentation and
let me interrupt, because there are a couple that came up on the chat window, John. One question is public or all private funding for the stadium. I think you've talked about that at least a little. Another question is bringing the Tampa Bay Rays an option?
Well, as I'd mentioned, the expansion is not going to be considered until those two situations are resolved. I mean, Tampa Bay is currently, looking at a new facility in Tampa that was rejected. They're looking at options to play up in Montreal to see if that might be a scenario for them. Also, one other location in Florida. And, they're in a lease till 2017. So there is an intersection at 23 or 24 where a conversation, would occur or could occur with the Tampa Bay Rays. And as I mentioned, part of our objective is to secure the rights to the market. As part of that, do the required elements to build out the infrastructure required to get a team here, meet all the objectives that we would be conditioned upon, and then have the opportunity, I'm sure is one of the conditions, to potentially negotiate with the Tampa Bay Rays, which is, and we'll get to this later in the presentation, one of our key strategies of coming to the market was to find a story. Not only, does everybody like a good story, but there's so much history of baseball in Tennessee, specifically in sort of Middle Tennessee, and also love for the game. And, as a part of that, we did an extensive, we hired historians, we did extensive amount of research. We ended up coming up with a name, the Nashville Stars, because that not only is, a good story, but it becomes a brand and it becomes an asset to our organization, because I don't think anybody would want Tampa Bay to just move here and be called the Tennessee Rays or the Nashville Rays. So that was part of our strategy. You want to jump to the next slide? This is just another review, sort of our perspective of more sort of the live concept. Because we view having not only a facility inside to host music, again, always on stage, or the ability to have a drop down from the rafters. And this facility would be not only would have a retractable roof, but it would have the ability to be conditioned throughout the year. So you could use it 365 days a year. And this gives you just an idea of what an outside entertainment venue would look like in a music venue. Paige, could you go to the next slide, please? So again, this slide is interesting because I'm, come from California, but and I've, lived here. But as I did the analysis of the market, and we're continuing to do that, we've launched a pretty extensive feasibility and economic analysis, and obviously this information either existed or was part of and is part of our study now. We're halfway through that. So when I say why Nashville, this is the reason why we chose the market. We are in the process of also studying how COVID affects the current market. I don't think anybody knows where the bottom is on this, or if it can happen again. So we're going to factor that into our our analysis as we continue to look at the market. But it's clear that this is one of the hottest, if not the hottest markets in the country for many reasons. Specifically as it relates to sports, it's a market that Major League Baseball would like to be in because I think it meets a lot of their objectives. I think it ties into a younger crowd. It ties into kind of the it city. I think the fact that sports has become so popular and is popular in Tennessee, in one of the top markets, that people, if you've been to a Titans game, which I'm sure you all have, or Preds game, there's a lot of people they see the schedules come out, they put Nashville on the schedule, and they come here for 2 to 3 or 4 days to attend one sporting event. We feel like the same thing will happen when there's a baseball team in Nashville. Let's jump to the next slide. So this gives you an indication. Let me just move this so I can read it. This will give you an indication of the organizational structure that we've put together since 2019. And as part of this, it's important, the music industry obviously is important, the baseball advisors, and we've developed a board of directors and continue to expand that, a list of strategic advisors and community advisors as well. The executive team, as mentioned, is really just run by a committee, and Rebecca Gonzales and myself really kind of lead the effort there. And then it gives you a little bit of an indication of kind of who's involved in our organization and what their roles are. And we'll continue to build this out.
John probably already mentioned the importance of local involvement, and you'll recognize a lot of the names on this chart. And it is very important for us to have local support, which we are receiving. But of course, we have received and will continue to receive national support as well. So that's, I think people are excited about this. And going back to the previous chart in terms of why Nashville, I think you read all the media accounts and comments from commentators and experts. When you talk about Major League Baseball expansion, Nashville is always going to be number 1 or number 2 on that list.
Any questions that we need to pause for, or just keep going?
One of the questions is, and you've been addressing this. One of the questions is, what positions Nashville as a better major league market as opposed to a place like Indianapolis, which has had success with AAA?
Yeah, I guess to answer that question, I mean, I think it's really, there's several ways to answer that. One is just a kind of a revenue generation market. And that's a market that I did look at. It just doesn't meet sort of all the criteria that you would you would expect it to. And really one of it is just, how do you drive revenue? How do you drive revenue from all those verticals that I described and, the fan interest, right? Putting people in the seats. You got to look at it just as one example. If the Boston Red Sox are playing the Nashville Stars midweek next week, and they're playing in Nashville or they're playing in Indianapolis, who do you think is going to have more attendance? I mean, that would be one easy sort of comparison to take a look at. Nashville's the hottest tourist market in the country, and with the expansion of the airport and the corporate expansion and just the reason people come here, we feel, and I think it's, as part of the analysis, it far exceeds the Indianapolis market.
You also have to remember that in looking at projections, we're talking about what is the market going to look like 24, 25 when we begin play. And so if the current trends continue, I think Nashville is going to be ideally situated.
Yeah, really Nashville, just to further answer that question, outpaces every market in what they call the Southern area district. And the two markets or three I looked at specifically in this area would be obviously Charlotte and Memphis. And, Nashville just, outpaced both those markets because really Atlanta's really been, as far from a Major League Baseball perspective, kind of it's not that you don't have Cardinal fans here or Reds fans here, but at least from sort of the territory and the media rights, Atlanta's controlled those rights, forever. And that expires in 2023. Okay, let's jump to the next slide. So Music City Baseball, the business model. As I described, you have to look at Music City Baseball as kind of a holding company concept. So there's 4 distinct verticals. The Nashville Stars Baseball Club, and their key objective is to secure an agreement from for the rights to the market for Major League Baseball. And again, as I mentioned, we plan to and are building our proposal to make that presentation at the winter meetings in 2021, which will be held in Nashville. The entertainment venue ballpark really is, you can't play baseball if you don't have that. So in really any market in the country that doesn't exist. So, we feel strongly that we have the opportunity to with our partners to privately finance a ballpark in Nashville, and certainly a key element to it, the entertainment piece, family entertainment piece is important as well. The real estate is just a component of it, a vertical that's required because it sits on an area. There'll be some additional uses around the facility that we're going to be participating in with a real estate partner that we've had many, many conversations with, and we're moving down that path to secure that partnership. And then what I briefly touched on was the opportunity to create a regional sports network, which is just regionalized content, sports content under one umbrella, which exists in many markets like the Yes Network or Comcast Sportsnet is a great example. And, Fox Sports South controls this market now. As I mentioned, that expires in 2023. There's an opportunity to combine content, whether it's baseball, hockey, or basketball, or potentially soccer under one umbrella. And as you've probably heard over the years, that is certainly a revenue contributor to the overall revenues of the team. So that's an important. So it's really Music City Baseball holding company, 4 distinct verticals. The key influencers are really kind of what supports that is just, the area that we focus on. And I mentioned the East Bank is our primary focus right now. The feasibility study or the economic analysis required to do that. And then it's the community. What Alberto touched on is, we knew that coming to this market, and part of the way we've structured the financing, the $6.5 million that we're focused on raising as a part of our initiative to get to our 21 objective is grassroots and structured that way. So we have a minimum investment of 25, and there's an investment, you obviously can invest higher than that. But our focus is to truly make this a grassroots effort. And it has to be a team that's embraced by Tennessee. It's part of Tennessee. There's a name connected to it. There's a history connected to it. And it's an important part of our, overall philosophy to do that. So, and that's why we continue to do that. And we'll continue to kind of focus on that, on bringing in local involvement in this effort. competitive advantage. I think we covered that a little bit, and I won't spend too much time on it. But it gives you a high level of 100 million music fans around the country, songwriters, artists, and stars. I think that's really sticks out in Music City Baseball's, MLB's mind because of it being kind of the it factor here. The MLB experience, is a big factor. We haven't formally announced this, but David Dombrowski has joined our advisory group, and David's got a long history in baseball and success as well. World Series championships. The most recent is with the Boston Red Sox. Tony La Russa, who I've had a long relationship with, is part of the effort. Dave Stewart, the former Oakland A's pitcher and executive, is part of the experience as well. So, really, I think we're bringing, if you look at the verticals above, we're bringing the best we can to each one of these verticals. And I think this clearly, gives an indication that we've got an excellent team in the baseball vertical. And then the Nashville Stars brand and the history and the connection to the Negro Leagues that we'll get into further in the presentation. And I think we can kind of move on from there.
John, two other questions came up.
Sure.
First is, does a second city need to be approved before Nashville could get an expansion team? That's the first question. And the second one is, are you looking at the junkyard site on the east side of the river across from Korean Vets Boulevard as a potential redevelopment site?
Yeah, I'll answer the last one first. I mean, we have looked at the PSC site, and we've had conversations there, and that is one of the sites that we're evaluating. And then the other question on expansion, that's a good question. They haven't expanded in 20 years. Typically because the way the scheduling works, 2 teams would be required. There has been some conversation about one team and what they call sort of bye weekends or bye series. I think the Players Association would have liked that because in baseball, as you know, during the season, there's really not too many days off. They're pretty rare. So I don't really have the firm answer on that, but it's part of our conversations that we'll be exploring. Al, do you have anything on that?
I would just say, just from scheduling purposes, 32 is much easier to deal with than even 30 or 31. So I think Major League Baseball would have a strong preference to bring in 2 teams if they were going to do that, if they were going to expand.
I agree. The one last thing I'll touch on the competitive advantage is, and we'll get into this a little bit later in the presentation. When we came across the name the Nashville Stars, that's a team that played here in the 40s and early 50s, and it was connected to the Negro Leagues, and specifically the Southern Negro League. As we secured the rights for the name and part of our commitment to honor the name and the legacy, we formed a partnership with the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. Bob Kendrick, who's the president, who's on our board, but also we have a licensing and a partnership agreement with them, which is exciting, and I feel it gives us a strong competitive advantage. Next slide, please.
One other question came up, and it has to do with location. Does the stadium need to be downtown for you to meet your standards for financial success?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the fact the areas that we've looked at, obviously that is a big component to it, and we're still going through that evaluation. We're looking at alternatives, and as part of our feasibility economic analysis, I think we'll be looking at that as well as alternatives, just in case. There was no guarantee on the East Bank, and it really has to be a piece of property where you can create a development in a sports and family entertainment district where you can kind of bring fans to 365 days a year. So great question. So this slide, it's kind of a recap, and this is more, again, this is an informational presentation, not an investment presentation. But if there's anybody interested on, learning more about it, please, reach out to either myself or Alberto Gonzales or Becky Gonzales, and we'd be happy to, share a business plan and share our objectives with you, and you can learn more. Anything you want to cover on this slide, Al?
No.
Let's
go on.
We'll move on. Al, do you want to cover this, or do you want me to kind of go through it?
Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. These are some of the things that we've accomplished during the first year, and there's been an incredible amount of work done on this project. John has really come into Nashville, become part of the community. I think he's learned about the community. He's developed trust within the community. And based upon his contacts, the contacts that others have on the team, nationally, we've been able to accomplish these milestones in the first year, which you can see for yourself. And the work continues. You know, as John has said, our objective is to be ready to present our case at the winter meetings at the end of 2021. And so this is what we've accomplished, and this is what else we have to accomplish to get there. A lot of work needs to be done. And but I feel pretty good about where we're at. Obviously, we appreciate the difficulty of being successful here, but we've got a good team, and I think we've put in place the right foundation, and I'm optimistic about success.
Any
Next
questions?
slide, unless there's questions.
If anyone has any other questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat window.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next slide. So our brand, I briefly touched about that, about the history. So this is a photo that I came across in the market here. A gentleman by the name of Skip Nipper wrote a book, read the book, had many meetings with many people, and Skip and I sat down over lunch one day, and he pulled this photo out. And it really changed the, you know, our path moving forward, because when I saw the photo, told me a little bit about the story of the photo. I contacted Bob Kendrick at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, also Dave Stewart, who's our partner. And although the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum acknowledged that the National Stars played here, you got to sort of remember that period of time. Teams weren't very organized, especially teams that were part of, whether they were formerly part of the Negro Leagues or did they just Negro Leagues players playing. You know, there was, you know, not always facilities weren't always available, or accommodations weren't always available to allow them to play. So it was a series of barnstorming leagues. This team would form. You know, we have very little information about them, but we've done an extensive amount of research since then as a part of that. So we feel like it's a good name. We feel like it ties the, you know, the history to, you know, the future. And as a, you know, as a part of this, I think it's, you know, it gives us an ability to honor, you know, that period of time and tell additional stories that if you haven't been to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, and especially if you haven't met Bob Kendrick, I'd go on our website. And if you click on our videos on our website, there's some interviews with Bob Kendrick for some things that we've been involved with here in the College World Series rematch between Vanderbilt and Michigan. That was the National Stars playing the Detroit Stars to honor the Negro Leagues, and to also honor a gentleman by the name of David Williams that we'll touch on, you know, in the next slide. And MLK Day, Bob was in town, but it's a fascinating place and a fascinating story to start with. Let's go to the next slide. David Williams. So David, I met David through Tim Corbin, who's on our advisory board, and Tim had called David when I was in office, and David said, look, I'll give you half an hour. And so I went over there, and any of you who know David and the history of David, it's very impressive. David was, you know, first in many ways in the SEC, vice chancellor and athletic director. Over 100 hours later, you know, in the day before David passed away, David's intention was to carry his philosophy forward, which is how sports can influence a society, and could it do that again? And it was really just, you know, tying the history of Jackie Robinson, his commitment to sports and society at Vanderbilt as a course he taught, but he was going to be our brand ambassador. The day before he passed, we were on the phone with Bob Kendrick, and Bob, we had planned to engage David as part of this, and a really unfortunate loss, but, you know, in his honor and kind of in his commitment, Bob Kendrick and I, it's really kind of fueled our passion to kind of continue forward. Next slide, please. So really, it's become part of our DNA, and it's a fascinating story to tell. And it's, you know, it's baseball, right? There's a connection to the Negro Leagues. Fascinating stories kind of behind that. If successful, when successful, we would be the first team to ever use a name or honor the Negro Leagues in Major League Baseball. So I think that's an important element to discuss. Let me jump down. So some of the things that we've, that I think, kind of in additional assets that sort of, tie into our objective here is, we've secured a letter it's on our website that you can review from the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum to MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred, and Alberto Gonzales and I personally delivered that to their offices. Licensing agreement that we have and the relationship we have with them. The future plans to do a satellite location within the ballpark. We do an annual day of recognition as well as part of our agreement. And gives us the opportunity to kind of continue their mission, which is they're not going to move their museum, but they spend a lot of time, sharing their message throughout the country as part of Major League Baseball's initiative as well. And just, like I said, I think we have an opportunity to see how sports can affect society again, given even some of the recent news that's gone on.
I saw the question as to whether or not can Nashville support 4 professional franchises. Part of the objective of the feasibility study is to answer that question. We believe the answer is going to be yes. But also remember that we're talking about Nashville in 2024, 2025. So, but it's obviously a very important question because the objective from the owner's perspective is to approve of a franchise that will be a positive net revenue generator so that there's revenue to be shared amongst the owners, I suspect John has already mentioned. And so that's a question that has to be answered and has to be answered in the affirmative, I think, in order for us to have any kind of shot of getting a Major League Baseball franchise.
Let's jump to the next slide.
We have time for just a few more slides and a few more questions.
Okay, let's go through this quick. If everybody could kind of glance at this, we do some annual events. And again, part of the David Williams story is, do more than you say you're going to do. So we've done, we've taken that to heart. So we're actually doing events here in Nashville, and we have some connections to, not only our brand, but to our objective. So if you want to glance at this, you can. Let's move to the next slide. Let's pass this because it's really, well, Al, do you want to cover this quickly or do you want to just move on?
Well, no, obviously we have a lot of information. Anyone interested in investing in this, we have more information to share. And obviously there are risks in connection with almost any investment and those will be shared as well.
Yeah. Okay, let's jump to the next slide. And really this is it. So this is the contact information. If anybody wants to take a picture of the screenshot, we'd be happy to share information. And again, I really appreciate everybody taking the time and welcoming us. And I'm sorry we couldn't do this in person. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Alberto Gonzales would be as well.
Sarah, you want to take it?
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Judge Gonzales and John, for joining us today. It has given us a lot to think about, and a lot of exciting things happening in our city. My final 2 questions that we have was, one was any thoughts to the Tennessee Stars to gather more regional following, and how is the fundraising goal looking? So I'm gonna end our presentation on that and then I'll close our meeting.
Well, we actually have the rights to the name Tennessee Stars. So, I mean, again, this is more than just a Nashville team. It's a Tennessee team, Alabama, parts of Kentucky. That's what we feel our region is. And it's really the Stars, right? I mean, I think the brand at the end of the day, like in any Major League Baseball team you look at, you don't talk about the Boston Red Sox or the Los Angeles Dodgers. It's either the Dodgers or the Red Sox. So, it's really on us to do a good job of developing statewide grassroots effort and support around the name the Stars. And, you could see as in merchandise and branding, other teams. Basketball's done a good job of that. You know, there's many different things you can do with uniforms and merchandise and branding, and whether you incorporate Tennessee or Music City and do some fun stuff around it. Fundraising, you know, we're probably north of, you know, 1.5 heading to $2 million. We increased our budget to bring on David Dombrowski because we feel like it enhances the chances of securing the rights. We've also, with COVID, we've expanded it because our restriction was Tennessee investors, and we're just opening it up now to outside investors, really just starting next week. So, but we still plan on to, you know, focusing on local investment and also a diverse investment as well.
Awesome. Well, perfect. Thank you. So for all of our Rotary board members, if you would hang on the line for just a few brief minutes after everybody hangs up, because we'll have a brief board meeting. And once again, thank you, Judge Gonzales and John, for being with us. And Becky, thank you for your PowerPoint and handling that piece of our program. We really appreciate it. We are going to be putting this up on the YouTube link as well as Facebook and LinkedIn and our different social media platforms so people can hear your presentation today as well. So thank you once again. And if there's nothing else for the good of Rotary, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.